is Rumor, and I am here with the fourth and final installment of my moon cycle spreads, here for the third quarter moon, which is also known as the waning half moon. So, I am back with the same decks that I used for the full moon. I made the switch over after using another set of decks for the new moon and the first quarter last time, and now I am back with the Moon Child and the Queen of the Moon Oracle and the Mondnacht Lenormand deck. So while I have no means kept this to a single lunar cycle, for the sake of consistency, I am returning here with the card that I drew for the new moon reading from the Flowers of the Night Oracle, the focus being on patience, on whatever is going on in my life at that particular time. I said before, this was actually a fitting one to have over the course of multiple lunar cycles, as I'm actually carrying it out in practice, because this is something you work on for a lifetime, really. But I did see it as like a longer time of my life that maybe this applied to, and so we're sticking with it again, more so at this point, just for the sake of continuity. But pulling from my little moon journal deck that has the different phases of the moon for the waning half moon, the affirmation we're looking at now is, I embrace the flow and receive my blessings with gratitude. So it almost feels like a more passive energy at this point, where we're really like working, ramping up to the full moon. Not that there's not still work to be done as that full moon wanes back to a new moon, but it is a time more of sort of like reflecting on what's been achieved, if there's anything that needs releasing, and whatever you have attained, giving back from that place of gratitude. It's kind of how I look at it. So as usual, this will be going on my card stand with my new moon intention to close out this moon cycle. Constant reminder on my desk during that time of what I'm aiming for. So, for the third quarter moon, our layout is going to shift basically to the mirror image of what I did for the first quarter moon. Because again, I like to follow the actual visual of the moon at that time. And so we see that the illumination is on that left half of the moon. So the cards, rather than last time for the full moon where we went all the way around, they're just going to be on this left side of my wild unknown reading cloth. So I can set these aside for the time being. I'm going to put patience back in the center. And we're going to shuffle. Sometimes read with reversals. I have not been reading with them for these readings, however. But ultimately, as I'm shuffling, I'm thinking about all the work I've done towards this new moon intention, how far I've come in realizing it, contemplating what I've needed to release in the process of that, if there's anything else that I need to let go of, if there's any more work that can still be done before that moon wanes to its tiniest sliver and back into the darkness. This is definitely, I don't want to say a less proactive reading, but I just think maybe focusing just more on reflecting the process at this point, but also being mindful of the fact that there is still more that can be done at this point. And as I've been doing, it doesn't have to stop at this lunar cycle. It can carry into the next. But this is giving us a nice ebb in energy, where if we were to push forward into the next cycle with it, with the growing illumination of the moon, can be that renewed push again of that proactive work, where I tend to see this this side of the moon as just being just slightly more passive, but in a good way. Okay, so then, as I've been doing, I'm going to look for my Queen of Cups signifier to be my cue for how I split the deck in this case. I don't always do it that way. I like to do it that way for whatever reason for these particular readings. I totally forgot to do it at the new moon, but I've been doing it now for these last 3. Where's my queen? No, really, where is she? Okay, there she is, finally. All right, so she is where I cut my deck. I take her out. She's anchoring as a signifier, underlying patience. Oh. So I came to the realization that I think I've been laying these out differently each time, whether I'm doing it face down or face up. Does it really matter? I usually, when I do a reading, actually, I do usually just lay them all out face up already so I can get like an overview from the outset. But I don't know. I'm only mentioning it now in case you've been watching and seeing my inconsistencies and it's really annoying you, but I am inconsistent as a rule. So anyways, starting here from the full moon position on this spread, I know it's getting cut off with the camera and my little tray table here doesn't allow me to like lay the full thing out anyways. So just doing what I can. But first position, what have I been clinging on to this cycle that I no longer need? How can I release it? What additional resources are available to me as I let go of what no longer serves me? To what extent have I manifested my new moon intention? What can I still do or continue doing to achieve it? And finally, how can I give back from my place of abundance? Assuming that whatever our progress, we have made progress at this point and, maybe making it about us. So how do we give from this place of growth and abundance that we've achieved? And there will be an oracle card over here for this third quarter position, but that will punctuate the reading toward the end. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm seeing so many people populating this one, which is cool because in my full moon reading, I had drawn the Hermit as something that was holding me back yet from achieving this new moon intention of patience. And I just saw that as a need for me to not withdraw as a means of avoiding the things that can overwhelm and maybe threaten my patience, to venture out and to be more interactive and so forth. And my previous reading for the first quarter was alluding to that to an extent as well. So speaking of that first quarter reading, based on what I was talking about then, I can't help but when I look at this, what have I been clinging on to this cycle that I no longer need? I have a difficult time over the last year not seeing the King of Cups as representing my dad. So I'm not going to bang on about it here. I've said it before. I lost my dad last year. It has been a process of grieving. It's going to be an ongoing process, but I think this past, this first year of it has been a really pivotal time. And so I have been opening up about that more. And I do feel like now having passed that 1 year mark, I am really turning a corner where everything is softening around the edges. And I know I'm still going to circle around to points where it's really painful, but to follow up on that earlier reading, I'm not going to say I need to let go of this because I no longer need it. I'm always going to need my dad in some sense, but I think that maybe when I let my thoughts drift there like too much, and if I can find myself dwelling on it too much, and then the emotions can kind of slide accordingly, and it can affect like my motivations towards other things that I'm doing in life. And I don't want to keep making everything about that. For the full moon, I drew the sovereignty card from the Oracle deck. And I do think it is an important time to be finding that self-sovereignty that I have, and just getting back into life with more gusto than maybe I have lived it for the last several months. So anyways, I'm just seeing that as my cue. I'm not going to fully let go. I'm not going to forget, but it's time now. As I go into year 2, I've got to start focusing more on myself and what I've going on, and those who are still here too and need me. And yeah, I don't need to belabor that point. So anyways, what's interesting, how can I release it? Well, this is kind of why I can't help, but even if I didn't want to see this as my dad, when I see the 5 of Cups, which is also a card that comes up for me a lot. But yeah, that's it. So it's like, stop looking at what is lost and appreciate what remains behind. And this is, of course, something I've been doing. So I don't think that these cards are like slapping me right now and saying, get over it. I mean, they're just, it's just that gentle encouragement. Like, okay, I know you've been doing this and you've been keeping patient with yourself as you're doing this. Just keep doing it. And then what additional resources are available to me as I let go of what no longer serves me? So yeah, so the thing that I'm like letting go of here is not like my dad and memory and love of my dad. It's about if I can just sink into the thoughts too much, if I can wallow in them too much, and it's something that kind of stunts me, and no, that doesn't serve me. So how beautiful is this? This is reminding me of the people out there that I have. First of all, my dad will always be alive and well within me, in my heart. But for those who are still like with us on this mortal plane, lovely family members, lovely friends, I have people, I have a network, I have a community who is caring and compassionate and meeting me halfway on this and there for me, and have been helping me refill my cup so I can move forward in the ways that I need to. So this is just such a lovely reminder of that. Like, I am not alone. There are people out there, and there are people who directly empathize with what I've been experiencing. And I feel like so silly when this comes up all the time, because you would think this is like the singular focus of my life and like the only damn thing that I have going on. It's not. Is it a reigning thing though? It does tend to overshadow a lot. I mean, it's just always like that big thing that underlies everything else. But I mean, honestly, guys, I've got other things going on. I've got other challenges going on facing me. My life is not so simplistic that it's just the one, but this was just a big one. And it tends to like cast color and shadow on like almost all facets of my life. And so it's kind of inevitable that it's going to keep coming up. So again, I always apologize for it. I know I shouldn't have to, but I mean, I just am if you're just bored of it. But anyways, I love this. So this just reminds me of like the compassionate, empathetic souls that are out there. I have people who have my back always, and that's been proven to me. And I just need to remember that. So then, to what extent have I manifested my new moon intention? So now this whole thing was patience. I'm not going to get into specifics of what things I needed to be patient with in my life, but I did relate during a previous reading how, this grief work, this is something that I've had to remain patient with myself. But simultaneously, because this isn't the only thing going on in my life, there have been a lot of other ways that I've had to remain patient with other people too, or just with my process with other things like creative endeavors that I'm trying to undertake, and I'm just trying to like build more momentum towards. And so the High Priestess, this is interesting because I feel like, well, especially now that I've been focusing on this particular intention for like much longer than one lunar cycle by this point, I feel like this is something that I've really started to like embody like intrinsically. It has really been a message reinforced in every possible like area of my life, and like where the patience is needed, how I'm able to maintain it in any way, shape, or form, that I think it has gotten enough into my psyche that I do have a more innate knowing of how to manage that, how to perceive what might challenge it, and also just kind of what to do to prevent as well as, react. And so I feel like generally it's become something more on an intuitive level now. I feel like I'm feeling almost an inner rhythm and flow with things, that it's less of an intellectual thing to think about. So I think once I close this reading, I'm going to be ready at the new moon to draw a new intention card, because I don't think this has to be sitting on my desk anymore for me to be mentally thinking about. I mean, I think I feel it in my being now, and I can trust my instincts to guide me through it because they've been doing so pretty well so far. That's what I'm getting from that. What can I still do to continue to achieve it? And so I see this as getting more of that, grounding in the material world, where I live a lot in the mental and emotional realm. I am very much existing in my head and heart a great deal. And instead of like letting, thoughts, memories, and feelings to kind of like tug me into the past, I just am getting this sense from the King of Pentacles as just being like present in this life, in this world that I still occupy, and the responsibilities to be had there, in my work life, but also tending to others and what their physical material needs might be, and my own, self-care and so forth. And just continuing to keep my grounding in that. That is something I often need to touch base with from time to time when I'm prone to otherwise floating away. And that grounded energy is obviously one that lends itself very well to maintaining the patient. So I might have this intuitive knowledge of how to like anticipate and manage and course correct and what have you. But then just if I'm maintaining my footing, obviously that'll feed into that, speaking generally. And then how can I give back from my place of abundance? Because this is an intention that I have been working with over a longer course of time, it has been applying to different areas of my life. I think that there are a lot of ways in which pursuing this has helped me reach the point where I am finally ready to give back from that abundant creative place that I have. This has come up for me in a lot of readings now, so I won't belabor it here, but the course of the last year, just kind of snuffing out my pilot light a little bit, there's definitely been a lot of work going into reigniting my passions and finding what I am still passionate about. And is it the same things that I was passionate about before? Or am I kind of evolving into something else? Like, do I still want to write, for example? Is that going to bring me the same joy it has in the past? Or do I need to like shift over into another thing? Those are all the things that I've been evaluating. And I've kind of let myself have this like passive period of feeling stuff like that out while the day-to-day necessities, the mundaneness of survival in life on a daily basis, that all continues. But this is sort of like the bigger, like underlying aspect of just like what I'm passionate about in life, where I kind of see my creative skills and interests going. Do I see myself shaping it? Do I see myself producing at the same level that I used to before, where I have kind of pulled back a bit from it for a while? And I have been feeling like all of this work internally and mentally and so forth, it has been helping me to finally like heal wounds if not fully, just enough progress where, yeah, I'm feeling like I'm getting my mojo back. And so I love that this is coming back because I feel like it's all helped me relight, it's helped me to relight my pilot light. And this is how I can give back. I can be the Queen of Wands. I'm not wallowing and withdrawing. I'm putting myself out there again. I'm creating again. I'm active again. And this is just so heartening to see because I feel like even if I've been feeling that way, I also tend to second guess it, and it's very easy for me to lapse back into old habits that kind of make me withdraw and go on pause again. So easy for me to do that. So like these readings have been really like poking at me, just like, no, you're doing okay. Just keep doing it. Yeah, don't go back into your hermit's cave. That's what the full moon reading told me. Like keep putting yourself out there. It's not something that's going to translate into like any big, huge, epic creation at the moment. It's still in progress, but this queen is reinforcing the sovereignty that I saw from the full moon reading and just indicating to me, reinforcing to me that I am operating now from a place of strength where I might not have felt that way at the outset of this process. I do have something to offer. I do have my inner fire, and great. So let's see now. I had drawn sovereignty from this deck the last time, but let's see how it wants to cap off this third quarter reading today. Oh, okay. Cards are falling, telling me it's ready. Where is it? Okay. Eek, it's that one. Okay. Interesting. Here, rounding out the cycle, but this is a new moon card. Beginnings. Look at that. Just drawing this right now, it helped me to see this doorway of this Five of Cups. So I see this as like, you know, an echoing there. Where like as I'm moving past what's lost and looking at what's still there and how that guides me out. And so this is like this new beginning to enter into. And so that's just like one intuitive thing that's hitting me from that card off the bat. But looking at the guidebook, new moon, beginnings. You are offered a fresh start. Your journey is beginning. Take the first steps towards something new. It is time to place emphasis on your health and well-being. Affirmation here is, I accept and rejoice in renewal and beginnings. There is something incredibly poetic and even romantic about that tiny sliver of silver that is the new moon. After the waning cycle and depth of the dark moon, here is appearing in the sky, incredibly, a crescent of the finest light, almost a scratch upon the blackboard of the universe. Here is the evidence that even after the darkest night, light returns again. The crescent of the new moon is an ancient symbol that stretches back to ancient prehistory. There are cave drawings featuring crescent moons, sculptures of goddesses in crescent moon diadems, and the goddesses Aphrodite, Hecate, Diana, Artemis, Inanna, and many Central Asian female deities were often depicted with new moon symbology. Go back even further into Neolithic cave paintings where moon and sun symbology features, with no phase more commonly being depicted than the new moon. When the new moon appears in the lunar cycle, we are gifted with a new beginning and a fresh start. What we have identified as useless or unneeded anymore has been released in the void of the dark moon, and here waiting is a new chance. Here we get to renew our lives and feel free enough to risk trying again. Whether we are asking for a fresh start in relationships or a new love, or are heralding the actioning of intentions such as better health, a new business, or the start of a new project, writing the new moon energy will assist us. Many creative people start new works on a new moon, and I personally, as an author, like to begin all my new works on this phase, even if beginning means simply typing up a cover page or outline. The most powerful of new moons for new starts traditionally are within the season of spring. So the companion stone or metal is Celestine. Lovely. Well, I love this idea of beginnings, this idea of fresh start, because if you recall, if you watched my earlier videos in this series, at the new moon and the first quarter, I had drawn the Fool card, and I saw that as like a call to like embrace the spirit of the Fool and just kind of take risks and venture out, where I have been and whoops, I'm back. Technical issues. So I got cut off there. Might have recentered a bit differently here. Anyways, though, what I was just saying is that like I had drawn the Fool those first two readings and saw that encouragement to venture out rather than withdraw the way that the Hermit card in the full moon reading was calling me out on. And so generally just speaking broadly to that, I thought this was just great, like reflecting that idea of fresh starts and taking risks, and then specifically addressing creativity, because that's what I'm getting from this Queen of Wands, of course. I think that it is such a nice timing, being that I'm doing this at the third quarter, but then I draw this new moon card, because obviously the light is now waning to the point where I'm going to be commencing another new moon cycle. So this all feels like great stuff for me to digest and continue releasing and working toward, so that getting into that next new moon, that's when maybe I can set a more specific intention for myself with these creative projects that I've got in mind, and just move forward and launch that at last. And it just seems like it's going to be a really great, like, energetic time to do so. So that is very cool. So now the Quickie reading that accompanies this moon phase, if you wanted to do that instead of getting into all of this, what that would look like is basically moving this to the center. I would lay this down after shuffling either first or last. I really don't think that it matters. And then for the Quickie reading with the tarot cards, it would be position number 1. To what extent have I manifested my intention? And 2, what can I still do? The cards that I had actually pulled in answer to that, I believe, were the High Priestess, was the extent to which I had manifested it. And then what I can still do is King of Pentacles. But if I were to have shuffled, though, and these are the cards that came out, then I'd be looking at it from the standpoint of like, well, you know, maybe maintaining my sense of patience has required getting command of my emotions to help me wading through those more tumultuous waters where I might feel in over my head and get overwhelmed and kind of act out accordingly. And so this just kind of helped me have that command of the king over that. And what I can still do then is, well, maybe 5 of Cups, maybe this sense of grief, loss, regret, what have you, is what adds to the tumult that I've had to learn to manage my emotions through. And so then the advice there is doing better a bit at letting go and moving forward and appreciating what I have, what is still there, and getting that sort of like even keeled sense emotionally, temperamentally, that I would need to maintain patience. And with beginnings at the center here, that would relate to finding the new beginning. And so in that respect, you know, this is still tying in with how I was interpreting that longer reading for myself. I think this all could still apply, as does this sense of the new beginnings. There you go. There's that visual match again. Venturing through that doorway from this, you know, kind of darker, more black and white place into a more verdant, colorful, brighter one, and seizing that new beginning. And so in wrapping up that cycle of patience, as I've been working on it, that's maintaining the patience with myself, as I have spoken to before, with relation to grief work and so forth. And so in doing that, it's helped me kind of round this bend and ushered me to this new doorway to walk through now, just in time for a new moon cycle. So great. I look forward to finally working with another intention. Because I'm impatient. I'm impatient to work with a new intention. Shows you how much I learned this time around, huh? No, but seriously, continuing with this then, if I do my 3-card Lenormand, whether doing the long version or this quickie version, I would close it on this 3-card spread for, where does it want to part? Can't quite feel it. Maybe I need to keep shuffling. Okay, so this is where I might find some clarity or additional insight. Wow, I think at the new moon I had drawn the child, and now I've got the fish and the stork. And this is really interesting. Like, central card I can see is like being thematic, and I interpret fish as abundance, and that's something that I saw. I mean, granted, I'm going back to the longer reading now, but with this Queen of Wands, this is what I can give from my place of abundance. So I see this as kind of echoing that. And both of these cards I see relating to new beginnings in their own way, like a new start with the child or something young, something that is beginning. And this is like a transition into something new, a new start with something. So if I were to try to construct this sentence, I guess I do see it as like the start of an abundant new beginning, transitioning to that. Totally pointing towards beginnings. And so, yeah, I feel like the cards themselves are ready to wrap up this lunar intention, this particular cycle, and get a new one kickstarted. I have given myself a lot of time with this one, especially doing it over multiple lunar cycles, to be sort of like stewing and reflecting and gestating with this idea. But I feel like this is now the punch moving me forward. And it's going to be really interesting when I do kick this process off again for myself at the new moon, if that is a theme that's going to be coming back, if there's going to be a lot of like fiery energy and things propelling me forward now that I've had time to like unpack and digest a lot this time around, you know, in finding that patience. Because a big part of this I have felt was in wanting to start new undertakings, maybe just not being there yet mentally, emotionally, even just scheduling wise, just having like a lot of other commitments and trying to find the right time. You know, I've had to remain patient through assorted things to feel like it's the right time to start. So all this is pointing towards, yeah, I'm there. And so it's going to be really fun then for me to see where my next moon cycle takes me in those readings. So for now, this is it. Those are the 4 phases of the moon that I will use to initially set the intention and then also just check in on that over the course of what is usually just a 4-week lunar cycle. Sorry if it's been annoying having to wait so long for the next one, though. If this is something that you have been liking and wanting to try for yourself, and you've wanted to know, what am I supposed to do for the next moon phase? I apologize that I've kept you waiting. But if it's something that you're first like discovering now, then I hope that you will look back to my previous 3 videos. So it's just this little 4-part series that I've done here. They are there in the archive for you. And again, as I've said before, either this time around or previously, this was something I started up very early in my tarot journey. And it is something that I used to do with consistency with the full spreads. And then I kind of got to where my practice was growing and evolving. And I was getting a bit like maybe, sidetracked or just more interested in doing other things and not leaving as much time to this, especially like really sitting with it and journaling it. I used to be so good about doing that, that's when I developed the Quickie snapshots, because I found that that's what I was wanting to default to at least get it done. And at least I was still doing it consistently, even if I was like narrowing the scope of it. And then it just, again, as time went on, I found I wasn't doing it at all, because there were just other practices that I was working with and exploring and seeing if those resonated with me. And I wasn't sure if this was something that really resonated with me anymore. And so thank you so much for hearing me out on all of these. As I've gone through it, it's very much for the sake of sharing it with you, but also just reevaluating for myself, like getting back in touch with an older aspect of my practice and seeing if it's something that I myself even still connect with. And I feel like it has been really valuable for me to do so. It definitely has me wanting to rekindle it for a while and go forward, whether I'm doing the long version, short version. I think you could just kind of mix and match this. I mean, however it's working best for you at any given time. And even if you don't care for the particular spread shapes and positions that I have been sharing, maybe if it at least gives you an idea if this is something that you haven't tried before, or something you were trying before was similar and just not working. And maybe this gave you some ideas on how you could like revamp a bit, or just do a little tweak here and there. Feel free to take any part of it, leave any part of it, leave all of it. That's no concern to me. It's whatever works best for you, right? So, I'd be the biggest hypocrite if I said that I'm consistently doing this. Obviously, as I've said, I'm not. And I might end up ditching this at some point in the near future. I don't know. It's all just been part of like looking back at it and kind of reassessing where I'm at in my tarot practice and what works with the rhythms of nature as well as the rhythms of my life. But I do find that doing something with the moon is a very nice way to feel somewhat in sync with those natural rhythms. And I'm not feeling the full thing, then I'll try to keep it to the new moon, full moon to check that progress. But when I do have time to do all four of them, that is nice too. It really adds a lot of layers into the broader picture of whatever this initial intention is. So again, thanks for hearing me out. As always, let me know if there is anything that you do to work with the moon cycle, whether it's in this way with the cards or in other ways, other rituals you might have. I would love to hear about it. And regardless, just thank you so much for being with me here today. And I will see you next time with whatever. I don't know. I couldn't say at this point. So anyways, bye.